Hello, my friends. I'm Flora speaking out, and thank you so much for joining me. Before I plunge in, I just want to say I can't be with you next week, but on May 30, 2 weeks from now, I will be back, also speaking out. Okay, I would inviting you to join me in a memory of one of the most important occasions of my life. It was when I was 24 years old, 1952, and that was 74 years ago. I was standing in a sort of stooping position in the local pharmacy. Why I was in the pharmacy rather than my apartment or in the post office, I can't imagine, but for some reason it was a pharmacy. I found an aisle that no one was occupying and filled out for the first time in my life a presidential ballot voting. I'd missed it 4 years ago because I wasn't quite 21 yet, and so I had to wait a while. I was certainly glad when 10 years or so later on they allowed 18-year-olds to vote for who would govern them, and a wise thing at that, because if their government can send them off to war, maybe be killed, these young men and women have a right to have a say in who governs them. Well, this was a very major moment for me. I realized there I was in private, totally up to me to choose who I wanted to govern me. And no power in the nation could tell me what to choose or see what I chose. I think, and it's up for debate, the universal secret ballot is the greatest achievement in this past century. It has made us what we essentially long to be ever since 250 years ago, when we were a free nation with a constitution. But this act really has been a long, drawn-out one, many slow steps over a century. In this, my lifetime, have women, for the first time, women, minorities, Native Americans, and all immigrants who are citizens have the full right to the ballot. Now, actually, the women's vote was 8 years before I was born, 1920, in the 19th Amendment. Great step forward. My great-grandmother had marched in parades in New York City to demonstrate the importance of women being recognized as full citizens. And I'm proud to say my grandfather marched with her. All right, it was 45 years later, after women achieved the vote, that President Johnson, Lyndon Johnson, in 1965, pushed forward the great Voting Rights Act, in which Black people could vote without poll tax, without impossibly difficult literacy tests, and without intimidation at the voting booths. Well, 10 years after that, 1975, these rights extended for the first time fully to Native Americans and all immigrant citizens. And then, I'm kind of filling you with dates here, 1980, then many states extended the mail-in ballot, which was so important for people who might not be able to get out on that particular election day. There were no early elections, it was all one day. And some people, doctors, mothers, caregivers, jury members, wouldn't be able to go out and vote. Now everyone could vote. This has been a long step-by-step struggle and procedure. But now, at last, every adult citizen has a right to unsupervised choice of his or her governance. This would have been almost inconceivable 134 years ago when my father was born. Actually, it would have been conceivable to my father. He was a very unusual person, way ahead of his time. And this achievement, so agonizingly struggled for, marched for, fought for, cost of lives as well, is now under direct attack by our federal government all the time. You've heard the news, the redistricting, making it harder for ethnic groups to be represented. The attempt to disallow some voting machines and mail-in ballots. The federal government would love to get rid of both. Thirdly, very, very grave evil here. The Justice Department has insisted that 40 states in our union turn in their election ballots, complete personal information. And I'm sorry to say that 10 states obeyed this evil order. Also, Todd Blanche, the acting Attorney General, has suggested openly that ICE agents be stationed at the voting booths from now on. ICE agents. Intimidation. And all this to appease our President Trump's mad obsession that the 2020 election was stolen. He has never conceded. He's punished politicians who disagree with him and say it was a legitimate election. He is trying to send the law after election workers in the states that did not vote for him. And enough cowards are backing him up. They're afraid to say otherwise. It's actually quite amusing. No, it's not the right word. Horrible, actually, to see Republicans of the president's party being asked directly by interviewers, yes or no, was the 2020 election legal, valid? They never answer it. They dance around. They say, well, I don't like to concentrate and focus on the past. I like to think what's happening now. That's all over with. And the interviewer will say patiently, can you answer yes or no? And they never do. One man's madness, casting, and this is perhaps the worst of it, casting doubt on the democratic process of election, hacking away nonstop at our century's great achievement. You know, ever since I've been going to the voting booths after my children were born, I would always take whatever child was at home that day, not yet started school, as young as a kindergartner, with me when I voted. I would tell the child in one of my daughters in language she could understand. Notice how the political influencers have to stay 100 feet away from the voting place. Notice how we go into a booth. Notice how we pull the curtain. So it is a secret process. Notice we are private. No one can see what I'm choosing to do. No one has a right to see what I'm doing. And I would explain to her, this is a high point in your life, watching a wonderful thing happening. And then I would punch the little buttons, or in the earlier days of paper, the little tabs, pull the lever, and it was done. And I would tell her how her great-grandma was 60 before she was allowed to vote. And her grandma had to wait till she was 27. And how that black pastor we had met a few months ago was 50 before he could vote without jeering, threats, intimidation. We are marching the streets again, just as my grandmother did with her husband. We're in a fight worthy of the name. I have the saying, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. I had always thought that Thomas Jefferson said that. He certainly believed it. But when I took the trouble to look it up, I found out it wasn't Thomas Jefferson who actually used those words. It was an Irish patriot named John Curran. And later on, that saying was made public in America by the great abolitionist Wendell Phillips in 1852. And this is the complete words he said. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, and its power is ever stealing from the many to the few. Perhaps this is a process that will have to be ongoing. It's a great accomplishment, but it needs watchfulness, renewal, people dedicated to its purpose. I've heard, interesting illustration, that the Golden Gate Bridge of San Francisco, correct me if I'm wrong, they have to be painting it all the time, because if they stop painting it, renewing it, it will rust. Rust will begin. And the same with us, my friends. The rust will begin to creep in without our vigilance. Thank you for joining me in my thoughts today. And I will see you again 2 weeks from now on May 30. Thank you.